As property management professionals, we're all building communities every day. Your focus is on creating meaningful connections with your prospects in hopes that they'll convert to residents, then retain those residents for years to come. Everyone working in property management company at any level or capacity should see themselves as community builders. The decisions we make, products we use, messages we share, policies set, and what claims our focus all center around community. We're here to have a conversation with 3 industry experts to talk about how they're building community. Each have a specific sphere of influence and their own bag of tips and tricks on how they're using Entrata CRM, which we like to call a community relationship management tool rather than a customer relationship management tool, to build community better. Welcome, ladies. Glad to have everybody here. Yeah, great to see everybody. So let me go ahead and get everybody introduced so we can get started with our conversation. First of all, today we have with us Ashy Poyer, Vice President of Sales with Peak Made Real Estate. How's it going, Ashley?
It's going well. Thank you for having me, Virginia.
No, love to have another Atlanta girl on a call with me. That's always fun. Next up, Jen Larimar, from Community Director with Rangewater Real Estate. Jen's coming to us from Florida. How's it going, Jen?
Good morning, Virginia. I'm so excited to be here.
Thanks for joining us. And then someone I'm always glad to see, Sara Graham, Director of Marketing with Dolben. How are you, sweet Sara?
I am fabulous. Thanks for having us today.
No, this is great. This is quite the powerhouse panel. So we're very excited to talk about Entrata's community relationship management tool with y'all today. So let's get started on our questions. One of the questions that we thought of was that how often it's said that relationships build business. And what does being a community builder mean to you in your specific position? And why is it so important as an industry that we focus on relationships? Jen, let's start with you.
Thank you, Virginia. I've worked in rental housing management for about 22 years, and I've always felt like it's my calling to make sure people have a good home to live in. Having a safe and stable home is literally the foundation of a human's hierarchy of needs. I like to tell my team that we're not just providing 4 walls. We are literally trying to set ourselves apart by creating value through the exceptional service that we provide and creating a sense of belonging by building these relationships with our residents.
I love that, a sense of belonging. So important when you think of home, right? What about you, Sara?
Yeah, I would add to that. I think very much sort of the same framework or mindset where, people love to say real estate is about location, location, location. But when it comes to buying decisions, the people are so important. And I think, we also talk about properties are not complexes. We call them communities.
So true.
And, that sense of community, we try to have that come through in everything we do, everything we say. And so a big part of my role at Dolben is actually helping our on-site teams create those communities and those spaces and places where our residents call home.
That's awesome. Miss Ashley.
Yeah, thank you. I totally agree with everything that Sara and Jen have added to the conversation. Peak, one of our mindsets is people matter most. And so, of course, creating that experience is a huge part of putting people first. But my team is responsible for capitalizing on the experiences that we create and turning our customers into influencers based on that relationship that we've been able to build. And so we really appreciate the functionality of the CRM tool to be able to help us do that.
That's great. So let's talk specifically about the CRM tool and some of its functionality, which includes products for us like Lead Manager, Message Center, Leasing Center, and call tracking. How have these products helped you build community in your specific job? And if you have any examples to share, that would be great. Let's start with you, Sara.
Sure. It's a great question. The whole CRM suite is really essential to how we run our properties day in and day out. Every touch point is really influenced and supported by CRM, whether it's the phone ringing and it's our on-site team answering and starting to populate a lead manager guest card, or whether it's the leasing center because we've missed a call. Having somebody there to really create rapport and start that resident life cycle, hopefully. Those touch points are incredibly important for us. And then having the tracking to understand sort of some of the trends that we're seeing and be able to dive deeper and redirect marketing spend, it really does impact every part of our business. And then you've got tools like Message Center, which support really someone coming in from a prospect to a resident, and are a huge piece of our resident retention efforts on an ongoing basis. So completely core and central to our business.
I couldn't agree with Sara more. I think the benefit of having one suite that works really, really well together, it feels really intentional to our customer, no matter what type of customer they are. The ability to build out contact points for residents that are different in time, different than contact points for our leads. And then, the ability to take that even further and say, if you're a lead that came to us through Leasing Center, we're going to handle you this way and you're going to get this type of response from us versus someone that we toured. Just being really intentional has really helped set us apart against our student competitors, but also is something that we really enjoy on the multifamily side as well. And then, one of our most favorite parts, especially going through COVID in the 2020 year, was Message Center and just how intentional you can be with the types of lists that you build, how you're contacting leads for a specific floor plan or residents that maybe haven't renewed and are coming up on the renewal deadline, has been really, really useful tool for our teams to just create really intentional experiences that convert to leases.
I love that you mentioned that that no matter if they're a customer or they're going to be a customer, like everybody's journey is different, right? So you want to be able to customize that to every person that you're talking to. I think that's genius, and that shows in how great y'all's leasing is over there at Peak. So what about you, Jen, as on property? This is going to be great to get an answer from you and how you and your team are really utilizing the products.
Absolutely. I definitely agree that Contact Point and Message Center has completely changed and revolutionized the way that we operate. We are able to connect with the residents in our community and the prospects that are visiting us as potential residents in new ways that we couldn't before. It also helps us create a more consistent experience so we can ensure that these communications are consistently happening at the same point and they're getting the same message and same exceptional customer service. And that really helps our team build and create that greater sense of community among our customers.
That's awesome. Is there any examples any of you can give us that just maybe something that's happened in this past year, this year of 2020 with COVID, and how you and your teams used the Entrata CRM to build a stronger sense of community?
So one thing that we were able to really take advantage of that's very different in the student space is the Leasing Center. And just I think, sense of relief that our residents had at always being able to talk to someone. That is something that's really set Peak apart. And we just really, really relied on that. The Leasing Center team was great at being able to stay up to date with all of our changing policies and some of the things that we had to adapt at the height of the pandemic. And that, I think that resource has probably been the biggest lifesaver for our Peak on-site teams.
That's awesome. How about you, Sara or Jen? Can you come up with an example from this past year?
I know that the software has really enabled us to reach out to our residents, whether it's introducing our new team members or inviting them to community events or helping them connect with things going on in the greater community. It's allowed us to keep those lines of communication open in a year that was so very different, and we all had to learn how to operate a little differently.
I think for us, Message Center, is something that our teams use widely anyway. But I feel like with COVID, it was so important to be able to get information out quickly and in a timely manner to say, hey, we've got updates. We need to tell you the amenities are closed. Or, months later when we were able to reopen amenities, we said, we're reopened, but things are different. And we've got social distancing and we've got amenity reservations that you all need to think about if you want to come down and use the spaces. And Message Center really helped us get those messages out to everyone quickly with not a lot of heavy lifting on the on-site team's part, which was really important given how much else they had going on.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, property managers and our leasing associates are superheroes on an everyday basis, and COVID just takes that to an entirely new level. So very, very grateful for a tool like CRM and Message Center in particular to be able to support that.
That's awesome. We feel the very same way about those on-site folks and how important their roles have always been, but love that they've been in the forefront of all of this. So those are great answers. Now let's talk about one of my favorite things, and this is something I know when I mention it, Ashley's eyes are going to light up. Let's talk about sales strategy. Is there a specific example about how you used Entrata CRM to elevate your sales during this busy time with COVID, or maybe during a lease up, or while you're repositioning a community, or maybe just maintaining and growing occupancy in a competitive market? What about you, Miss VP of Sales? I know you have an answer.
Oh, yes. So this is, my team's bread and butter. Although we went through a really crazy lease up, the goals didn't change, right? And so we continue to meet on a regular basis with our leasing center team and our client success manager. And they just did an incredible job of helping us make sure that we were converting as many leads to appointments and then appointments to leases from the leasing center team that was able to help us out with calls that we weren't able to handle because the volume was just insane. And just to put that into perspective a little bit, Leasing Center helped us handle almost 175,000 calls last year. And of that, that's everyone, residents, leads, everyone. But of all the lead calls, they were able to help us convert almost 17% of those to leases. And that's a huge chunk that just because of the bandwidth with our team, we might not be able to get to or respond to them before maybe a competitor down the street. So for us, I know I keep talking about Leasing Center, but that is probably my most favorite tool, our team's favorite tool, because it actually feels like an additional team member that's just always on call for them.
Yeah, it's like having hundreds of additional leasing folks right there that are working for you. And what a great competitive advantage that is. I love the point. Love that you said you could get to them before your competitors could get to them. Speed is key, right? What about you, Jen? Can you tell us about your sales strategy and how Entrata CRM has helped you in your community?
Absolutely. Well, I definitely agree with Ashley. We are at a busy lease up here, and it can get quickly overwhelming, the volume of the leads that come in. And I love how Entrata gives our team the ability to assign the leads, promote accountability. It has an easy to use user interface so that my marketing representatives are able to track their customers throughout the entire leasing process from start to finish, and also continue to utilize the contact points in the message center to get out the communications and reach out to people, track who we need to continue to reach out to. And I love that Entrata prioritizes for us so that we can really see what the urgent tasks are that need our attention first.
Yes. Well, gosh, in a lease-up environment, to be able to help your teams out and say, these are the folks that are the most important, the most likely, that's huge. That helps you manage your team, right?
Absolutely.
Right. How about you, Sara?
So I have two really good examples. First of all, another vote for Leasing Center, supporting our sales teams and our sales efforts. We did a little bit of digging too, and so in 2019, we saw about 100,000 calls come into Leasing Center. In 2020, that number increased by 50,000. Which is just incredible. We have about 80 properties under management, and we are fully deployed on Leasing Center. So that's a huge uptick in volume. And, the Leasing Center team really is that extension of our team, to the point where people will call the property, or, the property will call them back to kind of continue the sales process to the next level. And they'll say, oh, I expected to hear from Kate. And, the team's saying, we don't have a Kate on site. And, the calls are that good when they're handled by the Leasing Center. And I myself have listened to hundreds of calls, and there are some outstanding agents that sound like they truly could be at the property. So I personally appreciate the time that the Leasing Center team really takes to create that rapport when our on-site teams can't, whether that's fielding a lead call or a resident call. Hugely, hugely supportive to our sales process. The other thing that I really would like to mention, and is a little bit of a departure, just sort of thinking about how we stand out in a crowded marketplace, is the importance of online reviews. So we have actually used some of the drip campaigns within CRM to set up campaigns to increase our resident reviews, which have been so useful. You know, the first place that people go, they Google you, and they're looking to see who's coming up first, and they see that Google Knowledge panel over to the right-hand side of the screen. Google scores are incredibly important. You've got other reviews that are aggregating in that knowledge panel. And so we're really careful to not incentivize and to not influence sentiment, of course, when we're asking for reviews. It's a straight ask. We'd like to hear your feedback. But the CRM tool has been incredibly useful for that purpose too.
I love that. I love that. And that's one thing that, you know, can be quickly automated for your teams that takes something off your site level, because they're, like we said before, they're doing more than ever these days, right, on the site level. So that's
Absolutely.
Great.
Entrata's digital marketing team helped us set up some of those campaigns, and they've just been really almost set it and forget it, to the point where the team on site doesn't have to do anything except respond to the reviews.
Wow.
So turnkey, but again, hugely influential in helping people make that buying decision.
That's awesome. Thank you all. So let's see, we have one more question, and this is almost like, for me, and I think I know your answers based on what we've been talking about, but for me, what is so cool about hearing about what everybody is their favorite tool of Entrata and their favorite feature from that tool, there's always something to be learned, right? We hear it from people that have been customers for a long time going, oh my gosh, I never thought of that. Just like what Sarah's talking about with ratings and reviews. Somebody might not have heard of that that's going to be listening to our panel today. So, you know, we hear all the time that the CRM is a customer's favorite tool, the leasing center, the CRM, all of these things that we're talking about today. But like how you're leveraging that product in your different unique ways. What is your most favorite tool? What is your go-to in your arsenal of tools that you count on to help you manage your customers?
Hands down, my favorite feature is the service request management system. Entrata's user interface is so easily to use. It has changed how we do our job. You know, back in the day, everything was on crumpled pieces of paper, and the whiteboard board got messed up. There's no more of that. Everything is right in the software. Our service directors are able to utilize the Entrata Facilities app, so they always have their make-ready board right in their pocket at any time. And I think it also helps it, again, on that communication with the resident. They always know your work order has been assigned, it has been scheduled, they know when somebody's coming to their home. We can email them status updates. And an example that I love to give is that you have to tell people that, oh, you didn't put in a work order, I'm so sorry, we can't help you. You have to call the office, put it in. Residents no longer have to do that. They can use their resident portal app, or the service director has his facilities app. He can put their request for them right there as he's talking to them in the community and get their request entered right away. So it really, for me, has completely changed that entire component of managing the community.
Well, and I think that's so smart to look at what's going on with your service team as part of that, you know, that community building. So that's key. That's the reason why people stay, right? They lease because of the leasing team, and then they stay because of service. That's fantastic. Yes. What about you, Sarah? Do you have a favorite tool or feature?
It is so hard to pick one, honestly. But I think, you know, people say one size fits all, and most of the time I think that's fake news. But I think with CRM, you really it's so flexible and so customizable. And I think for me, the flexibility and knowing that you know, the leasing center, again, is there to support our teams if we're short-staffed, or if we've got, you know, in a lease-up situation, that's incredibly useful and important. But I think, you know, the two other pieces that I would say for me personally are really helpful in supporting our teams are thinking about reporting, and again, being able to pull that meaningful reporting from the different areas of the CRM, whether you're talking about lead tracking, or you're talking about call conversion, and looking at those different metrics and being able to direct more support where support is needed. But I think the other piece of it too is that Entrata really plays beautifully with other partners in the industry. So if there is something that we've got a client that they want to pull in a different feature that's outside of the Entrata CRM, it all integrates. And it's all, all of those different touch points are still right there in the Entrata guest card, and knowing that all of that data is integrated really makes it a whole lot easier for our team to support our residents.
That's awesome. That's great news. And then Ashley, we'll close out with you.
All right. So I'm sure you would guess that I'd pick Leasing Center. But really my probably most favorite, because it's just such an upgrade from the previous software that we were with, is all parts of the lead manager tool, from the dashboards to contact points to message center, being able to be really intentional with how we communicate and how we stay in touch, how we populate which lead needs to be followed up with, or which resident needs to be followed up with because they have a pending renewal. All of those things have just made our on-site team's jobs much easier, but also their efforts are far more effective and efficient. So before it was just follow up with everyone.
Right.
And what a huge waste of time, and now it's, here's the 10 people that we need to follow up with. And you can really see all of the emails that came from Message Center and their activity, all of the other contact points that have been completed, all of the text messages. It's all in one place, and that's just been hugely beneficial for the site teams. And then lastly, to Sarah's point about reporting, the ability to be able to see which leads attribution sources are the most successful for us, where at what point are our leads falling off, and why are they not leasing. To be able to have all that insight in one spot has just made my team our jobs a lot easier, but also our on-site.
I say all the time that if you make it hard to lease an apartment, it's going to be hard to lease an apartment, whether you're the customer or you're the leasing specialist. So I couldn't agree more. Having all those things in one location for people to not only manage the leads and the customers, but also help you and others create, community relationship and expand those people to become not only leads, but to residents, and those residents refer more residents. And that is the name of the game, right? That's what we're all trying to do. Well, I can't thank you all enough so much. Y'all are fantastic community builders, you and your companies, and we just value your partnership at Entrata so much. Thank you for your time today and helping us getting the word out about Entrata's community relationship management tool. Thanks, ladies.
Thank you.
Thank you, Virginia.